My name is Richard Covey, and I'm chairperson of the Department of Forestry, which is the main host for today's event. I also want to thank MSU Science Festival for co-hosting and for an MSU Creating Inclusive Excellence Grant for financial support. So just a few words about the Forest Paths Distinguished Speaker Series first. The idea behind this series is to provide a forum for leading voices in forestry to address a topic of current societal relevance, to model a successful career path for our students, and also to point to a future path for the profession of forestry. So I'm really delighted to introduce Dr. Thomas Easley, who's Assistant Dean for Community and Inclusion at Yale School of Forestry and Environmental Studies. Dr. Easley got an undergraduate degree in forestry from Alabama A&M, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. A master's in forest genetics from Iowa State University, and then went on to North Carolina State, where he received a doctorate in education. He was director of community diversity at NC State for 13 years, before starting at Yale in January of 2018. He works with the entire community across faculty, staff, and students on initiatives related to diversity, equity, and inclusion. He's been a pastor for a campus ministry, and he also regularly performs hip hop. What I really admire about Thomas is that he works tirelessly to bring together people and forests in a sense of community, and especially people who've not been well represented in the forestry profession, which is a major issue that we're working on. He recognizes that there's a deep connection between how we treat each other as people and how we treat our earth, and I really appreciate that about his work. So before you get going, on behalf of MSU, we wanted to present a small token of our appreciation for your visit.
Oh, okay.
All right, so this is a Lower Peninsula cutting board, just in case you don't recognize it.
All
right, very good. And this is from the MSU Shadows program. So not only are you taking back the shape of Michigan, but you're taking back wood from a tree that grew on MSU's campus.
Okay.
So please enjoy it. I hope you have fond memories of your visit here. So without further ado, Thomas, we're delighted that you're here.
Okay, thank you all for having me. Can you all hear me okay? All right, okay, so you see the title, Relationships, History, Hip Hop, and Forestry. And I had a young doctoral student ask me yesterday, what's the connection between hip hop and forestry? So throughout this presentation, I hope that you'll see the connection that I've made between hip hop and forestry. Okay, I want to say that I've made, okay? So first, let's get started, shall we? This hip hop, forestry, and poetry. It's getting late, let's floor a tree. This academic superstar gonna plant a tree, plant a seed and grow a tree. In my front yard locally, or on my block, hopefully, make others do it globally. Now fresh air is more fluid. I'm thankful for oxygen, a tree hugger, not again. A tree's my family. You see, I lost a lot of friends. Humans are greedy, mistaking it for hungry. Like a racist really hating for diversity they want. Okay, now, that's the first verse, and the one and only song called Hip Hop Forestry. Okay. All right, but, well, thank you. Okay, all right, okay. It gets better, okay. But let me just kind of go over that. I say it's hip hop, forestry, and poetry, because that's what hip hop is. It's poetry. It's getting late, let's poetry. Any poetry fans in here? Anyone ever heard of poetry? Okay. The reason I want to do that first is because when talking about hip hop, forestry, I think that it'll be challenging to grasp this in a way if you don't listen to hip hop. I just want to put that out there. If you don't listen to hip hop, get ready for a lesson. Okay? All right? But there's a reason why, for me, hip hop is so important. One is because hip hop, hey, I'm sorry, I just saw my friend down there. Okay. Hip hop for me is so important because, one, it was made in South Bronx by black and brown individuals, okay, who were struggling in their community. And what I love about anything that usually comes from, I don't mean the bottom as in quality or status, but I mean like the bottom when it comes to access to resources. That whenever something comes from people who are in that area, it's funny how it turns global and everybody starts to digest it and use it. You know, so that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do hip hop, because hip hop is kind of taking over every genre of music. But that's just what people of color do. We make things that take over. And other people may take it and use it, but we originate it. So that's why hip hop for me is important, why I'm using hip hop as a framework. This academic superstar gonna plant a seed and grow a tree. That's just me being clever. Okay. In my front yard locally, or on my block, hopefully, make others do it locally, that fresh air is more for me. When I work with youth, in particular in urban environments, this is what we're dealing with. Like, we're dealing with the rise of thermal heat, climate change. In fact, we don't have as many trees in like urban areas, even though a lot of times those areas used to be forests. So we're trying to rectify that now, right, by planting and trying to do what? Oh, have more oxygen for us. Oh, and then I say a tree hugger, not again. Okay, now that's the forester coming out of it. Just clear that over real quick. I'm like, another one? But don't get me wrong, I'm not against tree huggers. I used to hug trees too before I cut them down. But, but I'm saying is that I understand people who want to protect, and not to make fun of that, I totally agree with you in protecting the planet and protecting our environment. But then it's this part that I want to draw your attention to when I say the trees, my family. You see, I lost a lot of friends. Now, as a forester, I'm taught to, Steve, what's going on? This is so unprofessional. As a forester, I talk about the use of trees, obviously, and we use trees for various things, including making products. But if I was to go to my indigenous background, taught from my grandfather on my dad and my mom's side, trees are your family. You don't just cut trees down, because trees provide so much too. And that may sound a little willy-nilly to some people, but we wouldn't be talking about climate change in particular if people kind of actually adopted that. Okay, what I appreciate about my home and my family community is that we don't just deal in science, we also deal with social, we deal with community, we deal with spirituality. So when I say trees, my family, you see I lost a lot of friends, that means that my discipline in particular, we have a lot of things to answer for. Because we have cut down a lot. And so it's different, right? If you talk about it as products versus if you talk about it as something that you're actually connected to, and not just for oxygen. So when I look at the trees, I look at what they teach us, how they live on the earth, how they live on the surface, how they work together. I like how we put anthropomorphic terms in what we do, and we call it competition when trees are outgrowing each other. I don't think the trees call themselves competition. That's what we do. So I'm just saying how we attach our vernacular to nature. And when I love when we say we got to protect the trees from whom? Not from each other, and not from animals, from whom? You have to protect them from us. When we talk about urban sprawl, that's a term that we used to use a long time ago. Oh, the deer are the problem. They're coming into the community. The bear are the problem. No, they're not the problem. Our community is spreading out. So the other thing I like about hip-hop is hip-hop makes you change the narrative when you know some history. Then the last one, humans are greedy, mistaking it for hungry. Now, I know as a human who used to weigh 302 pounds, I lost 137. I'm half the man I was, and I'm proud of that. And I know, y'all are a nice crowd. Okay, thank you. But the point of that is not about shaming, size, nothing like that. The point is that I think we do things a lot of times and mistake it, for like doing it in a sustainable way. And so that's why I said that humans agree to mistaking it for hungry. Now that last line gets me. Like the racist really hates me before the first did they want. I'm from Birmingham, Alabama, by the way. Okay, in Birmingham, the racism is like, why? You can see it, it's in your face, we don't even fake it, no one shakes your hand and stabs you in the back. They don't shake your hand at all because they don't like you like that. And so when I'm working in this kind of field, especially talking about diversity, I get challenged at times with people who want us, and then I'm like, but you probably wouldn't talk to me outside of here. And I'll be honest, I have a problem with that. So I call that out in this song. Relationships, when doing diversity, equity, and inclusion work. What are you doing relationally? Especially in great colleges and departments, and I mean that, great colleges and departments. I am so impressed by what's happening here, and you don't need my validation because you've been doing this for decades. Okay, when I went to Iowa State, we used to look at what Michigan State was doing there. NC State, same thing. So I really want to give you, an applause for doing great work, and then also encourage you to continue. Relationally, when we're doing this work, what are we doing? We're trying to influence a person's ideology, thought pattern, cultural understanding for the purposes of changing behavior, ideology, and I say anything else maybe. Now, before anyone asks, because I got this question when I was in Arizona, a brilliant faculty member in particular asked me, but Thomas, don't you think it's important that we change the mindset versus changing behavior. And I said, that you are completely right. And I said, but I need to ask you a question. What can I see? Your mindset or your behavior? I said, I can only see your behavior. Your mindset, that's cerebral. That's like intellectual. Yeah, keep that. I mean, go do it. Okay, but I didn't want to take the conversation away from that because sometimes we can get very heady when it comes to talking about diversity. And for those who do see it as very heady, I want to ask you to keep it in your head space and remember you got to bring your heart and other things into it too. So that's why I had to say that, no, your behavior is very important because that's what we can assess and see. I cannot assess your mindset. If done well, you are doing it and they are aware that it is happening. Now, what do I mean when I say if done well? If doing diversity, equity, and inclusion work is done well, it doesn't mean that there won't be any hiccups, any challenges, any discomfort. But what it does mean is that we're moving along and we're working together, okay? And they're aware of it because they I got my guy Bruce and then I have my guy Justin. We've been walking and as we talk, we can bounce off of each other. Even if it's challenging, we keep bouncing. But if done harshly, you're definitely going to receive resistance. Now let me be clear about something. Even if done smoothly, you're going to receive resistance. So don't even, please, this is the United States of America, or as I like to say at times, the divided states of America. So I know that sometimes when you do this work, even when it's good, some people don't like it because it pushes against what they're accustomed to. It pushes against what we're used to. It pushes against what we're unsure what this is going to look like. Historically, when talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, what are we doing? This is, of course, my opinion. One, we're breaking ground and changing patterns yet again. Okay. If the history of an institution like Michigan State is that it wasn't always diverse, for years or whatever, then that means one of the things that we want to change is we want to change how diverse that it has been. But the challenge is a lot of times is when we bring people in particular into the space, the culture of the space hasn't changed. Okay. So the people come in and just having people present doesn't change the culture. Let's be clear about that. Because people can be present and be invisible all at the same time to the powers that be in particular. The other thing that we're doing is we're exploring and changing narratives. Now, I don't know if Dan Brown is in here. Is Dan in here? I got it. We had a great discussion yesterday about the origin of forestry. And not an argument, a great discussion. So I'm at Yale, which is known as the first school of forestry in the nation, founded in 1901. I also used to work in North Carolina, which is known as the first to practice forestry 10 years before then. But then what I heard is that in 1890, there was already work also going on up here, right? So there's another piece of the chapter to be added to the narrative, And I don't want to say, oh, you're wrong or you're right. No, let's go deeper and see because maybe there was something going on from here to North Carolina or maybe not. But the whole point is that there's more information to be had and to be learned. So I want to thank you for that. So the other thing that you got to be ready for is resistance yet again. Because when you tell a different story, some people are going to struggle with it. Give you an example. When I was in Washington, D.C., and I went to the Capitol building and I went on a tour with one of my former students, I've never heard in a few years people talk about George Washington being benevolent. And I'm walking around and he's talking to me about this and I'm like, really? You still on that narrative? I'm sorry, continue. Just like there's some people who struggle with the narrative of Aldo Leopold and Gifford Pinchot being involved in eugenics. We struggle with that, right? But everyone is an intersectional being. Everyone has multiple layers to who they are. I'm not advocating bad treatment. But I'm saying that we all have multiple chapters to who we are. And people now are struggling with this old Aldo Leopold and this Gifford Pinchot history. I don't think you toss the baby out with the bathwater. Well, don't toss either one of them out. But what I do encourage people to do is to critically, really look at what they did. Look at the Sand County Almanac. Explore it. Put it in its context. Okay? Because we are talking about people who didn't have great relationships with indigenous populations, who are also what some may consider the forefathers, and there's a reason why we can't say foremothers of our discipline. And I'm not saying that's good if we can't say foremothers. Okay? Hip-hop. Why hip-hop? First, it's the joint. What are you talking about? Why hip-hop? You tell me. Let's see. How many people have heard of Jay-Z? See? Look at that. That's why hip-hop. Right there. How many people listen to Kendrick Lamar? Or Rhapsody? See? That's why hip-hop. There you go. Here's why I say that, because I challenge a lot of times, I challenge the fabric, a little bit of scholarship and how we do it at our institutions. Now, don't get me wrong, I value publications, as I know that we do, and I value seeing our work in journals. The problem I have is that touches thousands and we have millions who need what we have. That's the problem that I have with that. And so I'm like, how do you get this information outside of here to people who wouldn't even talk the way that we talk? And you're placed right in the community anyway. So like I said, I value scholarship, but I also don't think scholarship is just on paper and just something that you study. Individualism. The other thing I love about hip hop, you had to, in my day, you had to be individual. Now, it's different now. You got your little everythings, In my day, you had to be big something. So I come from a different era. Okay, hip hop. I come from the pop, Wu-Tang. I'm sorry, I come from real hip hop. Okay. And so it's very individual, it's very unique. But let's be clear about what's going on today. I think that the music today is also very unique. It's different. Music reflects what's going on in the world. So while people probably want to put down what's going on with mumble rap and other music, I'm like, think about humanly what's happening with our community. People are trying to cope and deal with things now. Of course they're talking about drugs. People are trying to make it through this earth. Anyone ever heard of Chelsea Handler? The comedian? Now she's off the chain at times, okay? But I've recently watched an interview with her talk about how she was depressed after the recent election. And I mean how she was actually really depressed. She didn't know that she was depressed, And I'm not going to get political or anything like that, but just to think about the emotional state of a lot of people now. Suicide's up, depression is up, but the economy supposedly is doing better. Okay? Now, climate isn't doing better per se. So people are dealing with that. People are still working, through these feelings, even now. Know your audience and respond to others freestyle. Now, as a hip hop artist, you have to know your audience. You don't show up, you don't show up to a crowd like I wasn't going to walk in here, to be honest with you, and then just start rapping my whole album. Because you don't know my music, you don't know me. You just know what's on that flyer. So I wouldn't come in here and do that. But if someone tried to challenge me to rap, I'd be ready for you. It's called freestyle. Like I said, real hip hop. And when I'm in meetings talking to people, this is how hip hop works. This is how I can respond to people so well. So what I want to say is that to me, hip hop is scholarly, and I do it every day. Because I can respond to people in the moment, have perspective in the moment. And then last, my passion. How many people in here got involved in your discipline? And I want to say forestry in particular, because either your family did something like hunting, had some kind of a practice, took you out to the forest, did that. How many people in here have that kind of a, that kind of a background? Okay, raise your hands higher, please. Okay, so your family did something and then it got into you. Okay, you care about it and then you took it to another level. Well, that's all hip hop is for me. Hip hop saved my life. Hip hop woke me up. Hip hop let me know that I need to get up and get out and do something. Hip hop let me know that cash rules everything around me, so I need to do something and get that cash. So so that's why I really want to say that hip hop, it may be pop culture, but it's actually very educational. And in case you didn't know, there's a certain group of people that are making it and they're still here. And if you look at our history in particular, they tried to kill us. And they still haven't succeeded. I come from a civil rights family. How do you defeat a whole government when the laws are not on your side? It's called being brilliant. That's what it's called. It's called being resilient. That's why I challenge the parameters of scholarship. Forestry. Hey, I love forestry. I have my BS's in forestry, as was read. I practiced in Montana, in Bozeman, as well as Red Lodge. I've also practiced forestry myself, and I had my own practice, but worked with other foresters to work with landowners in particular. But I also got in forestry because I love genetics. Okay, my master's is in genetics from Iowa State, one of your competitors, by the way. But another school like you that does diversity, I think, pretty good, actually, if not very well. And so where does forestry go from here outside of the way that I was trained in the South, plantation forestry, more traditional? Where I work now is more environmental. Okay, it definitely has more of a sustainability focus. I notice you all do too, obviously. So where does it go from here while trying to diversify and bring other people into it? I took a different pathway and not a pipeline. Became a disciple of a discipline that's unheard by. Blacks, Latinos, indigenous populations whose ancestry starts back before land domination. before emancipation, before cutting down trees, before PTSD were growing red lights behind me. For life was so hard and I wanted to do some things. From concrete to floodplains, you can see our blood stains. We treated the soil that gave and still gives life. My vitamin D was not deficient because I was outside. All right, so now, one, I took a pathway and not a pipeline. I like encouraging words and terms, so I don't use pipeline. Just like I don't use the word minority to describe me because there's nothing minor about me except for when I was a child. Moving on. I became a disciple of a discipline that's unheard by Blacks, Latinos, indigenous populations. Now check this out, read that. A discipline that's unheard by them, but their ancestry goes back to the land before you even studied forestry, before forestry even existed. So I wanted to point that out. Here again, changing the narrative. My people have always been connected to the land. Because what happened historically, and especially civilly or uncivilly, now we're disconnected from the land. You're indigenous, okay, you were robbed of your land. Basically tried to kill you. Okay, and if you're Latino, we'll bring you in to help rebuild the land, but then keep you away from it. And if you're Asian, you came in, you connected this land, and then we keep you out. The other thing I want to go, and of course those are in general terms, we can get more specific, so I want to be clear, you can go deeper within each group. Before emancipation, before cutting down trees, before PTSD with blue and red lights behind me. What I'm trying to do is right here help you understand that if you want to bring people of color and other groups into this discipline, be mindful of the things historically that they've experienced. Because they can be walking around on this campus visible and invisible because you really don't know what they're going through. And you're like, why are you struggling? Well, a professor says something. Why are you struggling? They could be struggling because of the people that they see on these walls that don't look like them. They could be struggling with the money in their pocket with no faces on it that look like them. And these experiences lead to a lot of that. And of course, police brutality and a number of other things that people are struggling with. So it's not just about forestry. It can't be. Because these people don't just come from forests. For life was so hard and I wanted to do some things from concrete to floodplains, you can see our blood stains. I wanted to put that up because where do we live now? A lot of us live, of course, in urban environments. But if you go in other areas where there are a lot of trees and soil, a lot of us live in floodplains because we had to. Redlining placed us there. So now people are living in areas that they didn't want to live. So it's not just reservations, it's also going on in the city. History. We treated the soil that gave us still gives life. I'm saying we used to be outside. And my vitamin D wasn't deficient because I was outside. So I'm talking also about how we've separated so many things. We're so siloed now. You can't be an engineer and be a forester. BS. You can't know break English and be a forester. Crap. We separated. Great health, self-care is tied to discipline and tied to being an academic. Why have we separated? Why does me getting a massage for me to feel better seem like I'm taking too much of a break and you in the office stressed out, mood turning colors, and your hair falling out? Look at the culture that we promote. All for academia. That doesn't love you back. So, I decided to take a different pathway. Okay, I combine my passion, I combine my discipline, and I combine my interest to change the world. That's the artist side of me, and put something together. This is not for me to talk about myself. This is for me to talk about against the model that people told me that I couldn't do. They said you can't be a pastor and be an academic. They said you can't be a business person and be a forester, which are two different businesses, right? You can't be an artist and work in the academy. And after I did it for a couple of years, I started getting this question. How are you able to do that? Where do you find the time? It's not finding the time, you make the time. I care about this. You do what you care about. How are you doing it? Well, if you read or listen to what I'm doing, you'll figure it out. So diversity, what does it mean? What does diversity itself just actually mean? Let me just get two answers. What does it mean? Yes. Multiple things are not the same. Thank you. Something that's not the same. Anyone else want to add to the correct answer? What's your name?
Dinah.
Dinah? Thank you, Dinah. Who else?
Diversity from a system point of view is having elements in your system that differ from one another in their function and in their behavior. So if unexpected input, is entered to the system can survive because they won't affect all of its elements.
Sina. Okay, and I love how you started it too. You said from a social perspective, a system perspective. Right, because what, Dinah? Got it. Because what Dinah said, you answered my question immediately. That's all the word means. Okay, but what Sina said was you applied it to something, right? When I've asked this question in a number of places, people are usually say, oh, it's a bunch of people in one place. It's a, it's a lot of different identities. And I'm like, no, that's not what diversity is. The word really means difference. That's all it means. But when trying to apply it, and how do we see it, that's when you can get more specific. So Sina, thank you for that, because, so you answered the question and took it further. So then I go, well, I wonder why is it so hard to do this? And I think it's because so many people have various ways of how they think diversity is supposed to be. So now for the people who don't listen to hip hop, let's talk about scholarship for a moment. I got my doctorate in adult education, excuse me. I earned my doctorate in adult education from North Carolina State University. And in my study, I looked at STEM faculty, understanding of their role in diversity during their day-to-day duties. And I also did it through an anti-racist scholarship lens. This is what I found, because what I did was I applied an organizational behavior framework to the work that I do in Forestry. The organizational framework was faculty vitality. It's a behavioral framework. And what this framework says is that if people, because that's what the original research is by Dr. Teresa Houston, people, but then I use it and applied it to faculty. If they are vital, they are active in 4 areas: decision-making processes, faculty participate in activities that impact work environments and other faculty, intellectual exchange, the healthy sharing of ideas among colleagues. I've been doing that with Justin for the last 2 days. This is great. Appreciate it, brother. Social activities, anything that contributes to collegial relationships and helps to facilitate intellectual exchange and mentoring relationships that creates a sense of community. Since I've been here, we've done it at least twice. Dinner last night and a 9 to 11 session with the students this morning, where we learned a lot. And the students also came up with a lot of things that they're going to do. 4, mentoring relationships. Relationships that help junior faculty members establish themselves and transition to different facets of their professional lives. And I just want to say this. In my study, what I found very fascinating, because I talk to people not just in natural resources or ag or environmental sciences, I talk to people in architecture, biology, chemistry, remote sensing, engineering. So I talked to a host of people. And what I found very interesting is that the one thing that was insignificant in my study was social activities. Because they were in departments and areas that didn't do a lot of social activities. Yet it's the one thing that we say contributes to collegial relationships. And I'm like, since when do scientists get too busy to have fun? I know that we don't know how to dress, but when do we get too busy to have fun? Okay? And please don't be offended by the dress comment. Go to a student affairs conference and you see what I mean. Socialization. So in my study, what I also realized is that when trying to learn from the faculty members, I didn't just go in and say, how did you do diversity? No. Qualitative research, man. But I'm quantitative and qualitative. I wanted to know how you became a faculty member. So the socialization literature came alive in my study because socialization is the process by which a person learns values, norms, required behaviors which permit them to participate as a member of the organization. Socialization is a process by which individuals acquire the attitudes, beliefs, values, and skills needed to participate effectively in organized social life. I give you an example of how this works. I work with a very brilliant individual, a woman, originally from the Midwest. I won't say the state, I can't say her name, okay? Well, when she graduated with her doctorate, she went and worked at a great institution in the state of Colorado. And she was the only woman among more than 70 faculty that were men. More than 70 faculty that were men. So when I met this individual now, this individual is a full professor, they have a great career. And when I met them, and I'm in their office talking to them, we don't have the same kind of hard conversations that she had when she was coming up in her career. I'll tell you what I do when I'm meeting with this individual, and I don't mean this like in an insulting way, just hear what I'm saying. I tend to the little girl inside. That's what I do. Because what I do know is that as a person of color who has assimilated when I come into environments that are majority white, I can only imagine a woman going into a space that's majority male and having to assimilate and probably take on some masculine behaviors or male behaviors just to survive in that environment. And so then that individual, you know how it's like if a man does something, he's assertive. If a woman does something, she's That's what I'm challenging. That's what I'm saying. So here's this individual who has a great decorated career. And she told me, and no one's ever talked to her about that experience. And she's the head of something. but that's the only information you're going to get. You want to know what I'm talking about? Talk to me in private. Now, how else have I applied the work? How did I learn this work? This is why I say scholarship is also lived experience. I was a campus pastor for over 4 years at NC State. I was the only person that was the pastor of a church that was non-denominational, that was the most diverse church on campus. I'm talking about racially, sexual orientation, gender orientation. Our leadership, oh man, we were packed. And the church grew from 15 people to over 120. I did not come in to lead the church. I was like, what is going on here? Why are these people in here? I even had a church where people who were of different faiths, I won't say converted, but some did, but they felt comfortable coming into our space because of how they were treated. What did ministry teach me? Ministry taught me that a lot of people are broken. We'll call it imposter syndrome. You call it a number of things. But people are broken, and they come into these spaces, we say in hip-hop community, fronting, like they have it going on. Fronting like they know what they're doing. But if you look deep enough, you can see it in their face. And I'm talking about leaders too, faculty as well. You can see it, you're like, you don't feel comfortable. You're struggling. But see, in church, they can bring it, and we can talk about it. You see, I don't understand why we can't talk about it in an academic environment where this work is getting done. You know, see that separation again? And so they would come there and get some of what they needed to go back out into the world and do something. But what I also saw doing ministry is I saw dissension between people with the same belief system. So I'm not confused or, like it doesn't trip me up when people in the same organization don't get along. I'm like, it sounds like family to me. The unawareness of people to who they really are. I would love talking to faculty when I was at NC State, and I said, what are you? And then they go, oh man, I'm a faculty member. And I'm like, I thought you were doing parks and recreation work. That was next like that. I'm like, so you're not a park and recreation professional, you're a faculty member. Oh, okay, got it, good. Show me the resilience of people and the positive behavior when people learn and understand something different. I want to leave you with that. That showed me that. So when people are confronted with something different, and if they're tended to, they can actually move through it for the most part. That's why I say harshly versus smoothly. Speaking of people's values at times. Okay? I'll get more into that. So, because I'm going to be wrapping this up soon, because I'm feeling good. I'm not sweating too bad. I'm going to keep my armpits down. Okay, so, question. Is everyone a person of faith? It's a question I'd like to pose to people. Is everyone a person of faith? Anybody remember MC Hammer? I want to do that thing so bad. So bad, but I didn't want to start moving across. Yes, sir.
I would say to some extent, yes.
Mm-hmm. Can you elaborate? To some extent, yes.
Because it's a matter of faith to make a decision or act when you don't have all the information, and we never have all the information.
Presentation over. That's what I'm talking about. Thank you. So I won't echo what you said, because that was perfect. I'll just add something else to it. But because you're right, every decision has to be made if you don't have all of the information. I ask people, why are you in school? The hope is hopefully to get another job. Why are you doing this work as a faculty member? The hope is to either boost your career and change the world. Why are you here as an administrator, right? You have hope in something, and that's why I say the answer is yes. And I think that in our world right now, one of the things that people are losing is hope factor. People are losing that. Getting away from the things that instill hope. So that's also why I do hip-hop, because that's what hip-hop did. It instilled hope in people. But that's also why I like Forestry, because Forestry did the same thing years ago. Now, in somewhat of a challenging way, how they converted land and changed land, but built an industry that has supported so many. So both have changed landscapes. Both have changed things. Both have given people hope. When does your career begin? For me, my career, in my opinion, started right when I left high school and went to undergrad. Now, why I'm talking about the career piece is because, here again, like I said, taking the passion, combining my interests, and combining my scholarship. A number of you have a lot of different paths that you all have going on. Dr. Michael Brayboy, faculty at Arizona State University, full professor, Lumbee native, told me, because he was my mentor when I was getting my doctorate. He said, Thomas, your career doesn't end when you get tenure, and it doesn't begin when you get your doctorate. I'm like, okay, well then, so what am I supposed to be doing there? He said, you do what you want to do. He said, don't never let a structure determine what you do. You build your own structure. He said, now you can dominate it like I did and still do other things to help out your community, which I do. I said, okay, so then that's what okay. So I went to Alabama A&M, worked for the Forest Service. I took those two experiences, being at a historical black university and then living in the city where I'm the only black person in the county. You combine those two experiences and what did you get? Moi. Graduate school, Iowa State University, only black person in the department. Internship back in Birmingham, where I'm from, the only black person in the office though. In my own home city. Job at NC State. While at NC State, decided to get my doctorate and start a business and become a campus pastor, and now I'm at Yale. The career still goes. I'm saying that mostly to students in particular. Don't limit yourself just to what you study. I'm talking about in your life. Limit yourself to what you study to graduate and get out of here. But when you get out of here, make sure that you're doing other things, because Michigan State is creating great scholars. Okay? But scholars who do other great big things, it's hard to not value that, especially when you give back. Okay? So don't be afraid to branch out. Please don't. Foresters do it all the time. I know I do. I still have connections to my landowners. Pay me my paper. Okay. Now, to bring this to a close, why do diversity programs fail? This is a part that gets sensitive. Okay? Part of the reason diversity programs fail and they don't do very well is because there's no accountability. For, in particular, the people in power. There's always accountability to students and staff. There's no accountability to the people in power. Excuse me, I know y'all probably gonna do this shit, but I'll do it. What the hell is up with that? Because the people in power usually help steer the ship. So I want you a part of it, which means if you're not a part of it, you are part of the problem. Because there are things that you could be doing that you don't know that you're doing. There could be opportunities that you're missing that you don't know, and all because you are willingly, and in some cases unwillingly, not educating yourself and getting involved with other people who are grinding in this stuff so bad. The common model is to hire someone and make it their job to do the work that the institution needs to be doing. Michigan State, y'all don't do that. I'm proud to say that you all don't do that. I've seen it. I'm watching it. I'm not saying that you're perfect. No one's perfect, but I think you're doing great things. And I just want to encourage you to continue. The leaders have to be a part of the discussion, but not the discussions only. They got to be a part of the actions and movement. I'm proud to say I go to a school where my supervisor, she went through undoing racism and community organizing training. I would not have encouraged her to do that. And so I went to the training with her because I was like, you all right? But I didn't do that because I'm afraid for white people to be uncomfortable. I did that because what did I say? When I talked to people at times, I tended them like gardens, and I knew she needed some support. So I gave it to her. You know what she did in that meeting? Gave everybody else the support. She said, as the dean in this room, I'm not going to say anything. Because I don't want you to think that I'm trying to take up space and just use my power. She said, before y'all wonder why I'm being silent. I went, you better go. Glad to be working with you. Another major reason that they fail, the diagnosis determines the treatment. The why determines the how. And I was at SAF on stage with a great professor a couple of years ago. We talked about that. And I said, people say that they just want to diversify because the population is changing. I'm like, okay, the population has been changing. We want to do this because in 2050, our population is going to look a certain way. I'm like, your population is starting to look like that now. What are you doing? So if the only reason to do this is just to catch up with the population changes, to me, that's just stupid in fear. That's not being progressive or like innovative. You're stupid in fear because if you did something better and said, let's address why people are not in the classrooms at our school, now you're doing something for real. Because now you're dealing with the history. Now you're dealing with the narrative. Now you're dealing with the systemic, structural, and institutional isms that make it hard for people to persist, let alone get in here. But if you just say, oh, we just want to bring them in here, oh, then that's just like going out and poaching. And that's why I'm not with the Forest Service now. Because a lot of agencies and institutions did a lot of poaching. And then when people needed some things to change for them culturally so I can continue to grow in this organization, what I needed did not matter. But that's why I tell people, try to learn business as well. Because if you learn business and how people put money in front of their humanity, you probably understand why people make bad decisions. And why people do the things that they do. Seriously, I'm not joking. Learn business. Learn economics. So you can see how people actually think when it comes to money. Because a lot of times it's not, I don't like you, I don't like you. It's like, how is this going to help me here? Which to me is shameful, if that's the only thing you're doing, but it's not if you're combining it with things, but that's how a lot of times how people work. Why is diversity so hard? Because you can't solve problems until you realize you're part of the problem you're trying to solve. Hence why everybody has to be a part of it. I learned this the soft way as well as the hard way. So many things personally in my life I tried to work through, but you don't necessarily fix it if you're always the objective person that always has it right. You ever notice that? You ever seen people like that? Oh man, I didn't mess up, she did. Oh, it wasn't me, it was him. And I'm just like, but the common denominator is you. Here's my minority report about what's going on with the poor. No clean water, got liquor stores. No banks, good housing, can't afford. Got drugs, got guns, got more. Dope boys, no books, gym floors. Deadpool, can't swim, lead in my pores. Contaminated, mentally challenged, I'm sore. Getting scholarships, but my body earns scores. I want to use my mind and explore. But cricket scared cops standing at my door say I resemble this dude that shot 4. But I don't own a gun, but I am at war. Praying about who came after the 44. President evidence there won't be no more. Black folk for a while, not expecting support. Now, here's my minority report. I'm talking about a certain population of people that I don't like to call minority, about what's going on with the poor. No clean water, got liquor stores. I wrote this round with middle schoolers, describing what their community was. And I loved it because with that line in particular, no clean water, got liquor stores, how dare you judge me on the decisions that I'm making in my community? No banks, good housing, can't afford. How dare you judge me on the choices I make in housing? Got drugs, got guns, got more, no boys, no books, gym floors. Anybody lived that existence before? And I say you have to raise your hand if you do. That's how I grew up. So when I hear people make comments about the choices people make, the foods that they eat, how are they living? I see them drinking. They're not using their money wisely. Excuse you? Do you understand what's going on in this community? Do you understand how the wealthy and how the wealthy are able to advance is actually what's hurting this community? You understand the imbalance of resources in this country? And why people are going through that? I know I'm talking to family, because that's why you all are here. Okay, Deadpool, can't swim, lead in my pores. Contaminated, mentally challenged, I'm sore. When children are exposed to lead, I don't know what the content level is, but before the age of 8, this is what happens. And research is showing this, the whole school to prison pipeline. When they look at how people, like what they were exposed to, they're starting to see a connection to that too. So I just wanted to write this with these young people because I wanted them to tell their story. Why diversify? Tips on diversity. You want to do diversity, everyone has to be involved. Here again, now I'm singing with the choir, okay? I'll sing soprano, you sing tenor, good? And I feel like I'm among common, allies and advocates here, both. A macro vision with micromanaging hurts diversity. You must trust those that you work with. I say that because many times when people work in diversity and they come up with ideas, it's going to be challenging for the people in the power structure to understand it sometimes, especially when we talk about, let's go out to the community, let's start younger, let's do this with this, let's work with this center, women's center, GLBT center, like a number of things. And one of the things that frustrates me a lot of times, but I understand that it comes along with the territory, is when people ask me, why are we doing this? And then I look at them, I'm like, you didn't tell me why you made that decision last year that wasted 6 figures of our money. What I'm doing is free. Why are you asking me about it? It's not like you're coming. Do you want to be a part of it? I won't lie to you, I get tired of answering questions to people who don't show up. And I get tired of answering outstanding answers to mediocre individuals who don't participate in this kind of work. I'm like, really? But if I ask you a question, like I've seen students in classrooms try to talk about diversity and environmental justice, and professors will say, oh, that's not important. It's not. I don't know about that, so it's not important. I'm like, okay, so now your incompetence is excused, but theirs isn't. As you think about diversity, don't negate your policies, rules that govern how you operate. You must be willing to look at them as well. Because that will keep things in place. I can always lean to this policy. This is why multiculturalism is deeper than just having an event with food and people dressing up. Please. Are you kidding me? You can go get that down the street, go to a restaurant, but when a place operates off of the full input and full acceptance and presence of everybody here, I promise you it won't look the same. It can't even operate the same. Mind your blind spots. What you don't notice or willingly ignore can hurt someone versus a workshop where you can be tied to goals at all levels. Remember, people are more than their jobs. At times they have more skills than what they were hired to do. And that's also why NC State lost me, because they couldn't keep up with that. If the morale is low, you waste time and energy trying to get people to move. You waste resources as people. You waste the resources, and the people are the resources. You can do a lot more with the people that you already have here if you invest in them, versus just letting things go and then trying to bring other people in. Still, for those that want change, this is what I was talking with the students about and other people. These are my last couple of slides. Learn the organization. Know what everyone is doing and know the history of the place. Develop your agenda and try to align it with the bottom line of the organization. Help use your energy a little bit more. Create relationships in the organization, build allies, and put a time limit on it. Don't ever hold on to something so tight that you can't move on and continue to progress. Because at a certain while, when things grow, it has to be out of your control. You can't keep your hand on it the whole time. That's why I appreciate about the civil rights movement. They knew they had to bring others in, and they knew that they couldn't control the whole thing. Learn the priorities of the organization, learn what the leaders value. In some ways, that's how I've moved in my career. I look at the people with power, how they get there. And they're like, okay. And then I just try to do a little bit of it, communicate with them. Now they think I know something. They think I'm in, like partner and stuff like that. And then take over. All right. It's called co-conspiring. I need co-conspirators now. I don't need people that's just going to be scared and then say, I don't want to say anything because I got to get a grade, or I don't want to put my career in the balance. I understand that. And hey, do what you have to do. But because of where my community came from, I don't have time for that. Don't try to control everything. Learn to speak others' language. That's what I mean when I say give voice to values. That's what I mean. I don't mean like just a language of tongue. I mean speak to what other people get and what they understand, and watch how they get behind you. Utilize emotional intelligence. So I close with this. Hip-hop forestry. Forestry is the practice. Hip-hop's the religion. Both made by human, both imperfect, make them in tradition. This hip-hop forestry, our trees are not a commodity. They are teachers showing how to live on troubled land and live in harmony. This hip-hop forestry, because both rose from the underground. One changed landscape, the other changed the landscape the same. This hip-hop forestry, we're not scared when people and bugs approach you. We don't just worry about POs, we also worry about CO2. Hip-hop forestry, emissions, we don't do carbon copies. We cross-pollinate culture and we respect our waters and bodies. This forestry, hip-hop, we are related, we respect forms of life. You can't treat me worse than a pet. Something about that ain't right. This forestry, hip-hop, in different forms of dialogue and debate. And forestry, hip-hop, you can't own what you didn't create. Sit with that for a minute. How can you own land as we continue to lose it? Makes me mad. Unfortunately, hip-hop, respect life because life is a value. We listen, then discuss problems, solve, then we add you. This forestry hip-hop, inclusion is retribution, not just seeking solutions. In food, water, religion, we remove pollution. This for hip-hop, every complexion is worth of protection. Care for the land and the people, that's true progression. This for hip-hop, started in New York, now it hits the planet. Carolina with forestry land, not just to be managed. It's to be respected because we've all been neglected. Two communities come together in one body, let's protect it. Questions? One, two, three. One, two, three. Got it.
Not easy presentation. And one of the things I look at is diversity. Organizations want to bring in diversity and inclusion, but one of the key things is retention. How do you keep these people? And I think that's one of the things that don't get addressed a lot. You bring people in, okay, we have our stats. Bring people in, but how do you keep them?
So that kind of goes to the multicultural piece. How do you retain them? You bring people in, but how do you retain them? And I say this is what goes to the multicultural piece. One of the things is it'd be better to probably prepare the environment or the milieu before people come in, so that when they enter, people can move a little bit smoother, quicker, so on and so forth. One of the things that I try to impress upon people is this notion of hypocrisy and congruency and being trifling. Let me give you the hypocrisy. If Emily Huff doesn't like something, she's my supervisor. And then the thing she doesn't like, she exposes me to. That's the hypocrisy. Why would you expose me to it if you don't like it? Just think about that for a minute. You don't like it, so why would I? Just let that sit with you. Just let it sit with you. I'm sorry, I said with you. Get comfortable. Let it sit with you. Congruency. Do what you say you're going to do. You tell me that you're going to support me and help me with this, then do it. But understand that the way you support me has to be, in some ways, the way you're comfortable supporting me. Because you're your own individual, but it also has to align with what I need to. And they don't always the same thing. Okay? So you have that. And then the other piece, is also like set people up for success. If you want them to be successful, bring them in and help them. I'm not saying handhold, but help them, because people are coming from different stages, different pedigrees. Like being from a land grant and being at Yale is different. It's a different standard. I didn't say better standard. I did say a different standard. So going in, I had to learn how to do various things. I've had to adjust. The difference between what most people experience in me now is that I have an attitude that lets you know you can't, like DJ Khaled said, don't play yourself. No, you can't play me. Okay? The power you have over me is whatever I give you. If I don't give you anything, you don't have any. I understand that I control this person. I'm my boss. You're my supervisor. Because if my leg doesn't work, I can't walk to work. So I put certain things in place. I'm like, hey, Tom's got to take care of himself now, and if you don't want to help me take care of myself, then I know what your value is. So then right there, that means we don't see eye to eye. My welfare is not important, only what I bring to the school. Okay, cool. So that's what I mean, like how do we rectify that so that people are getting what they need? Okay? We can talk some more about that. Huh? Yes.
So I'm interested in how often you've traveled and how many different institutions you've worked at. So as a graduating student, I put in the last 5 years and maybe in the last 2, I've sort of felt comfortable enough to join the Diversity and Inclusion Committee and do work in this area and have a voice in my department. But I wonder if you could talk about your experiences of how do you go to always moving to these institutions? That's what students face all the time, but still creating a space there and working towards making that space better when you're always the new kid, and when you're not the new kid, you're about to leave.
This is, so I have a couple of different opinions about that. Because I'm all about changing the space where you are when you can, especially for the sake of making it better for you, if you will. Here again, like I talked about letting things go and being able to release. I'm also a fan of making sure that you get what you came there for, okay, and so that you are successful in that regard too. I travel, actually not a whole lot, I've only been to 2 schools this semester, so I don't get out like that, but everywhere that I've been, and we talk about diversity, people are in different phases, different levels. What I've come to find out is that at most places I've been, the students are the most invested in diversity. They're the most invested, okay? The staff and faculty usually are invested, but a lot of times they're more concerned than they are committed. Okay, concerned versus committed are 2 different things. If you're concerned, what I feel is people always can probably ask a lot of questions here, always poke holes at different things. And when you're committed, you can ask questions, but you come up with solutions at the same time. You're trying to figure it out. If you're the new person on the block, every time you go to a place and you're trying to change things, like I am, in my last 3 jobs, that's what I've been. I've been the trailblazer. It can get tiring because you're kind of setting the tone, you're making the space, you're making it, in some ways you're making it better for your successor, or who's going to come in after you. And so this is why those tips about learning the organization, learning the priorities of the organization, that's why I said to do that, so you can take care of yourself and monitor what you're doing instead of going into a place and totally getting torn down. Now, I'm also 40 plus years old. So if I see, if someone said the N-word to me, that doesn't make me go, what? I'm please, but on campus it doesn't. After 5 in the parking lot, that's different. But in the building, it's different, because usually after 5 in the parking lot, you're probably not stupid enough to say it. So a lot of times people do stuff like that where they feel safe. Usually. You got some courageous people out there that even I'd be like, yo, they said that, let me go the other way, you know. But I'm a big proponent of self-care, and like I said, learning the institution, but don't sacrifice yourself for the institution. I would say sacrifice yourself for a cause that you believe in, and if that's institution, then it's on you. But when you're always the new person, it can be exhausting. So I also challenge people, don't always try to go to a place where you're the first all the time. You know, try to either find something or get involved in your passion to take care of yourself while you're doing that, because you need to be able to take care of yourself. And if you are the new person bringing something new, then that means you have the hardest job of trying to get people to get behind you. So you got to take care of yourself. Okay, and if I'm not answering your question, I can answer more after this. Okay? All right. Okay, and there's one other question. So we're approaching 5, so I guess it'll be the last one. Yes?
You touched on it a bit in that last answer, but maybe we can find this a little bit from the perspective of somebody who is going through, academia or any situation where there's the prospect of a different socialization, right, that you spoke to. So academia being, predominantly white male, and say someone wants to come in and do something different, like you coming in, you're black, you want to rap, and I saw your YouTube video, you mentioned you started writing poetry when you were getting in trouble in high school. To me, that spoke to wanting to be honest with people so that you can relate to younger people that have real experiences. Some of these things are obviously aberrant to the socialization of the system that you're coming into. So I wonder what kind of philosophy guided you in, you have hope to get in here, you have to some extent conform to the norms of the institution in order to gain the credibility to do what you want to do, but you also want to gradually increase the honesty and the uniqueness of what you're bringing. So how do you ride the line of risk, I guess, of staying in but giving the value that's unique to you?
The way I did it, and can I get your name?
Ty.
Ty, and the other individual asked me the same question. Is Ty just want to get your name? Because I know Bruce.
Betsy?
Betsy, okay, so thank you, Betsy. Ty, the way I did it wasn't necessarily a plan until maybe about 7 years ago. So I entered into the academy. The aim is to move up in the academy. So my first few years, that's what I did. But what started to happen was, as I was doing all of that, I noticed that I was still hungry for something. So while I'm doing all of this work, it's still kind of empty for me. Because I'm doing what meets certain standards, but I'm not doing what Thomas really wants to do or what I have to do. So I started to put it together, right? So as I was teaching classes, my students are who woke me up to the hip hop piece. See, it does pay to be cool in college. And so when students started signing up for my intro class, all because they heard that I rapped, I went, because we're not going to talk about rap in my class. I'm going to challenge you. I want you to be better, like Forestry. I want you to be better statisticians when you know me. I want you to be better tourist professionals. I don't care about hip hop in this class. But when I saw what it did to them, then I went to my colleagues and said, look, I think we might need to consider something. But then, this is what happens. See, now this is the difference between me and some of my colleagues at my former institution. I care about the people who are experiencing things in the classroom. They care more about the scholarship and getting in the class. That's what we differ. And that's why I always got 5 in my teaching. Not because it was easy, because they saw that I cared my colleagues, some of my colleagues did not. So then I took it upon myself to start to do it. I was like, wait a minute, leaders don't wait for others to affirm me. Let me just say that to you, leaders don't wait. We go and we do it. It's in me, it's time to do it. And like I said, civil rights family I come from. So I can't wait for people to justify or to validate it. I have to do it, and you create the validation, which is what happened. Okay? There are other people who probably do it the other way too. You go all the way through, then after you achieve, then you try to assert and do things. And I totally get that too, because people are being, that they are preserving themselves. But I think that for you to bring I say whole person, and we can talk about that, because I don't necessarily believe people have to bring a whole person to their job. I really don't. But for me to be comfortable in my work, I bring my whole person to my work. And so once I figured out how to do that and meet other expectations, it just started to work. And now I'm showing other people how to do it. But at first time, it wasn't. People just challenge what I did. And I just kept going. But we can talk some more too about this. Man, I got 3 more talks I got to do. But thank you.